Bleach Revisited. I am Karkur Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and narrative, as well as personal response to each of these chapters. We'll also be talking about how the chapter connects to the rest of the story via foreshadowing and spoilers. As usual, we begin these videos with a reading of the chapter that we are currently on and discussing. This is Chapter 89, the beginning of Bleach, Volume 11, a Shonen Jump manga with story and art by Kubo Tite. Maybe it's because I've been so busy lately, but I constantly find myself thinking, I wish I could draw without worrying about time. But in reality, when I do get some free time, I'll probably piddle around and do nothing. I guess you always want what you don't have. Kubo Tite. Bleach is author Kubo Tite's second title. Kubo made his debut as Zombie Powder, a 4-volume series for Weekly Shonen Jump. To date, Bleach has been translated into numerous languages and has also inspired an animated TV series that began airing in Japan in 2004. Beginning its serialization in 2001, Bleach is still a mainstay in the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump. In 2005, Bleach was awarded the prestigious Shogakukan Manga Award in the Shonen Boys category. By the way, this volume does have parental advisory. Bleach is rated T for teen, recommended for ages 13 and up. This volume contains fantasy violence. Light a fire to the fang that cannot be reached, so that I do not have to see that star, so that I do not slit this throat. Bleach, Volume 11, A Star and a Stray Dog. These are the Bleach All Stars and stories. We have Uryu Ishida, Yumichika alias Sigawa, Rinchi Abarai, Ichigo Kurosaki, Ganju Shiba, and Orihime Inoue. The plot. While Ruki awaits execution in a Soul Society cell, Ichigo and the others try to rescue her. They manage to penetrate the shield that protects the inner city of the Soul Reapers, but are hurled in different directions by the impact. They find themselves scattered and hunted by an army of Soul Reapers. Ichigo fights and defeats Ikaku Madarame, a San Setsukan user. Meanwhile, Ganju faces off with a pursuer of his own. This is Bleach, Volume 11, A Star and a Stray Dog. There was a lot of noise back there. Do you think the fight is over? How would I know? My, such a rude response. Perhaps it's time that we finish this. I'll use my Fuji Kujaku, my Wisteria Peacock. Finish this, eh? Man, you're so arrogant! A smoke bomb? What's this? It's stinging my eyes. Curse that fool. Well, had enough? That was a Kukaku brand chili pepper smoke bomb. I call it Tears of Blood. Oh, what? Hey, it got me too. My eyes. I can't breathe. Defective piece of crap. Ha! Your plan backfired, fool! Hey! Running away again? You unsightly oaf. Bleach, Chapter 89, Masterly and Farewell. I'm not dead. Why? You're awake, huh? Yo. Ichigo! Why are you still here? I didn't know that a Zanpakuto goes back to normal when its owner passes out. Ozukimaru! Give it back! Relax, I'm not gonna steal it. I just needed that styptic stuff that was in it. But I used it all up. That stuff works great. Do you know what you've done? What? It's not like I could ask your permission first. Uber stingy. That's not the problem. I knew something was wrong. That wound should have killed me. By saving my life, you've shamed me. If I could move, I'd kill you right now. Wow. You're like totally welcome. If I'd known you were going to be a jerk about it, I'd let you die. Anyway, I don't really care how you feel. I just want the answers to a few questions. Of course you do. That's just my luck. What do you want to know? My birthday? Where's Rukia Kuchiki? Kuchiki? The prisoner? What do you want with that thing? I came here to save her. What? Save her? How big is your team? 7? 8 people? 5. And a cat? A cat? Are you insane? Maybe. You don't have a prayer. You're an idiot. Ah! Oh, I laughed so hard my wounds reopened. Now who's the idiot? Very well. Go straight south from here, and you'll come to the barracks of the 13 Court Company Guards. What? What? Why are you telling me this? That was too easy. Shut up. Be quiet and listen, or I won't tell you. There's a white tower at the west end of the barracks. You'll find her within. Really? You believe me? She means nothing to me. If you want to save her, go and do it. Hey, and hurry before the others find you. Go now. Okay. See you. I owe you one, Akaku. Don't make me vomit. Wait. May I ask you something? Of all in your group, who is the strongest? I guess that's me. I see. Then beware of my captain. He'll ignore the weaker ones. If you are indeed his strongest, he'll certainly go after you. He's tough, I guess. You'll find out. If you can stay alive long enough to face him. What's his name? No! Blast! Another dead end! You have no sense of direction, Kenny. Silence! It was your hunch that brought us here. Forget it. We're going to the next place. Aye, aye, sir. They're gone. Yeah. They seem strong, but they didn't notice us. No. They must be like Ichigo. Strong, but with low detection ability. Well, we're here, but which way now? What about that way? I see something that looks like a tower way over there. A tower? Where? Look. Over there. I missed. You dodged at such a close range. Not bad. My compliments to you. Now I'll say goodbye. Feel regrets. If you had not encountered me, you would have lived a while longer. That way, now! We were just there! Are you playing with me? That is it for Bleach, Chapter 89 at the beginning of Volume 11. Bit of a rough record for me. I might have botched some of those, voice lines there. I had a really rough time getting the beginning of this done. For whatever reason, the word discussion kept catching on my tongue, and I had to really force it out. You might be able to go back and hear that every time I said it. I kept trying to use phrases like we're going to talk about this in this chapter, but now that I can kind of speak more casually and I don't have to really restart the take. I like to do one good take for the entire video regardless, but obviously during the reading I'm not going to reread a line, whereas just talking to you normally like this, it's okay if I kind of bungle something. These are unscripted. These are one take if I can do it that way, and I also do not write I don't write a script. They're unscripted. They're also unedited. Otherwise, there would be no way with my current work life setup that I'd be able to do these with editing and all the other. Anyway, this is volume 11. Features Renji on the cover. So Renji's finally getting his chapter cover. Of course, in order of importance, we have to get characters like Ganju first, obviously. But here's Renji. He probably should have been the volume cover. Who was on the cover of the volume where he actually showed up? I don't know. I don't remember. Oh, I think it was Byakuya actually. So that makes a little bit more sense. But here's Renji with Zabimaru. You might notice that a lot of the Shikai have the Maru suffix thrown on there, and I tend to I don't know my Japanese very well, so you might be able to correct me. But as far as I understand, Maru kind of gets attached to give like a name to a thing. So like something like Inu, which is dog, like Inu Maru would be like dog guy, like something like that. It's sort of like makes it like, oh, you're like the person that embodies this whatever the other thing is. I don't know if Zabi itself, like how that's written or what that really technically means, but yeah, you'll see, like, obviously you have Zabi Maru here, but then we know that we get Hozuki Maru with Ikaku, and there will be more Maru names to come up. So yeah, I could be completely wrong. If I am, correct me in the comments. Whatever, teach me something. But I'm pretty sure it's a fairly common Japanese suffix for a name. Suffix meaning that it comes at the end of a name or at the end of a thing. A prefix would come before. But yeah, that's it's cool. I like this Renji. He looks solid. I like that he's like somewhere in between his usual kind of rude dude self, and then also looking a bit more contemplative, a bit more serious here. It's maybe a little bit more in line with the way that we expect Renji to look in these volumes. Um, but yeah. Zabimaru. I mean, we've already talked about Zabimaru's design. We've already talked a little bit about it. I mean, it's nice to see it here to get a little bit of confirmation of how it might look in color, if you're not familiar with all of that. But it is what it is. I'm trying to think of anything else I want to say about this volume cover. Oh, it's also cool that we get to see Renji with his old goggles. Notably, remember Ichigo did cut those in half, and I don't think that they appear in the manga ever after that. Notably, those I think they're revealed in Omake to come from like a specific glasses or like eyewear shop in Soul Society. So it's kind of cool that is a thing. Um, yeah. Yeah. Whew. Okay, let's get into it. I was just like coming up blank on anything else to say about that cover. I do like it. I do think it's a solid depiction of Renji. It's not too over the top, but I think it's decent here. Talking about what Kuba has to say, just kind of finding the free time to do something, and you probably just waste it. If you're not familiar, being a full-time manga artist is very taxing stuff. You don't get a lot of free time to yourself. You're looking at like 10+ hour work days every day on a very strict deadline. Because if you're doing something weekly, you know, imagine creating 20 pages of like a comic every week. Like, even if you break that down to an even amount of pages per day, which you're not doing a whole page process, you're probably typically the way that it works is that you've got like your manuscript, and then you work through that, and then you do your roughs, and then you get your line artwork done, and then you have assistants hopefully to help you with all the backgrounds and inks. But if you don't, you get to do all of that on your own. Just a lot of work that goes into it to get something done every week, right? It's a big crunch, and of course you have to submit things. You have an editor that then can like tell you, well, you need to do this or that. Yeah, so kind of wild, kind of the sort of thing where you just always sort of busy. It really works people to the bone, and it's incredibly a lot of sedentary work too. It's terrible for your health because you're just at a desk all day, constantly, like hunched over, drawing. Um, so lots of manga artists tend to get sick, tend to have a real rough time because of it. It's a lot of work, but we do get to enjoy the fruits of their labor, and they get to produce some really great stuff. No tobacco in this one, so you know that maybe Kukaku won't show up again. But we get to this character poem, assumably for Renji. He's both on the volume cover as well as here in the character poem. It's not always the case where that happens, but here it is. Uh, as far as like what this poem's kind of evoking, it's some imagery that we will get later in the volume, because as we know, star, what is it, like, this volume is the star and the stray dog. So the star here probably refers to the same sort of star that's being evoked there. So we'll just have to wait until later to really tell what this is evoking. But as far as kind of coming into this volume and talking about it right now, we do have this idea of like a fang that cannot be reached, right? That like there's this idea of, starting a fire, right, lighting a fire, to kind of reach towards a thing, to kind of immolate like some sort of danger, some sort of fang, whatever it is. So this incitement, this sort of, there's danger afoot. There's this beginning of conflict, but all for the purpose of not having to see a star, which we don't know exactly what the star is really referring to, and also not having to slit a throat, and it could be one's own throat or someone else's throat. I think in the more kind of literal sense, if we're going to take this straightforwardly, Renji is starting to, like, this maybe highlights that Renji, the slitting the throat, if we're reflecting that in like the actual execution of Rukia, right? Then Renji might get in on this entire conflict, everything that's happening. I mean, he knows that there's some sort of conspiracy going on, or at least he's been told, right, about all of this. And so we're wondering how much Renji is going to really start to incite things on his own, and whose side he's going to end up on. And this volume might seek to answer that for us, right? So really, this is kind of a reflection for Renji on what to do, whatever put in this compromised situation, right? Does he really want to see his friend die? Does he turn his back on, the society that has raised him out of basically being in poverty, right? Everything that he's worked for his entire life. Is he going to abandon all that for his friend? I don't know. We'll have to find out. Of course, the All Stars and Stories. I think I fumbled that, and I was like, I'm just going to keep the reading up. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been 10+ minutes. It's out of my brain. We get our usual kind of cast of characters. We also get confirmation for Yumichika's last name is Aya Segawa. So now we know a little bit more about him, and obviously he'll feature here because he is squaring off against Ganju. We get a little bit more of Renji, though this shot seems to be a shot of whenever he had that pair of goggles. So, interesting enough, I'm not going to try to spoil these for you. I was about to go down. I usually don't try to show the chatter listing because I want those to be a part of what we read through. Plus, sometimes they can contain spoilers. Coming into this first panel, I do really like every time that Kubo does like art that extends from one panel to the next, especially like this sort of film reel, like this is sort of like a pan down almost. It works really well for me. And of course, this is supposed to be the kind of smoke from the huge, like the sound effect almost of whenever Ichigo crashed into the building, right? Near the end of their fight. I assume that that's reflective of Ichigo destroying that entire wall that he did, right? So meanwhile, over at Yumichika's and Ganju, as they're facing down, and we get a little bit more sense of Yumichika that he is, like Ganju says, very arrogant. We get the reveal of Yumichika's Shikai, right? He flips out his sword, and I'm wondering here, because we don't actually see his weapon. We don't get confirmation of whatever his release command is. So it must have happened off screen, but here it is. It becomes this sickled blade, and then levies out to have 4 different sickles. So it's Fuji Kujaku, Wisteria Peacock, and of course Peacock's being associated with this guy that has the feathers. That's very fanciful and arrogant. Yeah, it fits. As far as Yumichika's character goes, the idea of a peacock being like this bird that has this very dominant display that it puts on, it seems to fit as far as what we've seen everything of so far. As far as also talking about kind of what do these weapons do, what are these Shikai capable of? So far we've gotten these like very like physical transforming kind of swords. Notably, Urahara's was one that actually had special abilities, right? It could create a shield, it could do all these blasts, things like that. Now, Ichigo's seems to serve the purpose of just he needs a sword. And then with Ikaku's, the Hozuki Maru, we get this, kind of tricksy weapon. It changes its physicality, but it also has like a few other features going on, even in its base form, which is kind of cool. And Renji's Zabimaru allows him to fight in a very different way. And so, assumably, Fuji Kujaku does that as well by being this multi-sickled sort of blade. Though it seems like that, like especially with the pin in the middle, like above the handle, like that. I don't know. Seems like it would not be very effective. But hey, it's magic sword rules. I don't need to explain them. I don't know how to, like my immersion can go a little bit further than maybe it would in real life. Nevertheless, it is kind of a ostentatious sword. It maybe is more for looks than it is for functionality. Um, you know, peacocking. This dude's peacocking. That's basically it. But then I also think about like how that falls within, like this combat heavy division, right? So clearly you must have some sort of combat heavy thing, but I also think about like how I wonder how territorial peacocks are, how much that all falls in. I tend to think about lions as like marrying like this kind of regal over the top aesthetic, with their manes and everything. Um, but maybe that's also because I play a little bit too much Legend of Five Rings. But the marriage of military, uh, you know, like dominance with regal aesthetics is one that's been seen throughout history. So, it fits. Anyway, here we get kind of a little bit of confirmation on a couple things we might have worried, what am I saying? Wondered about Ganju's outfit. So he has this kind of pill bag over in his back, and we get the confirmation that it actually holds several bombs. So it's sort of like a backpack almost of sorts as a holding for bombs. He pulls one out, and then kind of neat his gauntlets, which have this design. This is actually something that he can light the fuse off of, right? It's got whatever grit, or maybe it's like flint. Who knows? But it is made to where he can just strike these bombs right off of his gloves. So it's kind of cool design. I really like Ganju's outfit design and how it works into his character and all the tools he has available. Um, Pretty cool stuff. It reminds me, if you go back and read Zombie Powder, which, as you know, is Kubo Tait's previously published work in Shonen Jump, Kubo had this real sense of creating character designs, usually for antagonists, that like their design mirrored some sort of functionality of their power. There was a lot of that in Zombie Powder, from what I recall, and so I think it's a little bit of that kind of being held over. I do like that this explosion happens, and he's trying to see from it, and we just get Ganju, boasting from inside the smoke clouds, and of course the joke is he's an idiot and he still stood within the smoke instead of just running off. But here, yeah, I love him bursting out of the smoke and running away. Cute chapter cover, having them both have little pigtails, right? I think it's adorable. Rukia is someone that we don't get to see a lot nowadays because she is trapped in a tower. So it's nice getting to see her still featured on volume, or I guess chapter covers. I like this shot back where we get that very narrow kind of hallway that Ichigo and Ikaku are fighting in, and we get it from Ikaku's perspective, and then back, the shot reverse shot kind of is pretty nice. I like that it zooms out and Ikaku just kind of looks over. Ichigo's chilling. I like that he's just hanging out in the wall that he destroyed, waiting for Ikaku to wake up, maybe, because he does want to ask him some questions, but I assume that he would eventually go. We do get a little bit of actual confirmation. Once the user has been knocked unconscious, their sword reverts back to its base state. So the unloosed states are something that you kind of sustain with your consciousness. Of course, looks like they also ran out of the tactic because it's revealed that Ichigo patched Ikaku up. Assumably, he also fixed his own arm because he's not over here bleeding, even though he's got it bandaged. So, should all be good. Of course, kind of neat is that Ikaku rationalizes that this would have killed him, right? That he was prepared to die, which is kind of neat. I'm glad that like actually gets mentioned. They also bring up Rukia. I will say I do really like, again, that we were talking about this in the previous chapter, but like using this patterning as like stippling into black, like that works I think really well here on Ichigo Shihakusho. But otherwise, I'm as always kind of great expressions from Ikaku and some pretty good ones from Ichigo as well. I'm like Ichigo cast and shadow here. You can really see again Kubo really playing with like the way that he's lighting all of this. Very serious Ichigo as he expresses that he's here to save Rukia. And I do love the gag of like, oh yeah, we got 5 people and a cat. Yeah. I mean, if you think about like, okay, and we're going to infiltrate the Soul Society, which has 13 divisions, all of which is a captain and a vice captain, all of which are stronger than them. It's like, you have 5 people and a cat. How are you going to fight your way through 26 people that are all stronger than Ikaku, right? But kind of cool is that Ikaku does kind of honor Ichigo in this way, right? And yet again, we're seeing these kind of moments that Ichigo is able to connect to somebody else, that Ichigo is able to forge these connections even with his enemies, right? Even though, like, for him, he's like, yeah, dude, I would have let you die if it was up to me. Like, I didn't really care about you. It's just, I needed to get this information. It seemed like the right thing to do. And I think really deep down, honestly, Ichigo's not the kind of person to just let somebody die in front of him like that, He's not that callous. I mean, we've gotten that literally from him, that he's, if somebody's in danger in front of him, he's going to do what he can. And I think growing up at the clinic is certainly something that probably impressed itself upon him, is to try to do things to help people that are in danger or are hurt. So it's nice that he actually helps Ikaku. I think it's a really tender kind of character moment. Because essentially, I mean, yes, Ichigo is the one that threatened Ikaku's life, but they had to fight because of these circumstances. So it's nice that Ichigo kind of wins Ikaku over, not just by saving his life, but also through kind of just impressing upon him, like, why Ichigo's here and all of that. Mostly we just kind of get this back and forth, I do like that Ikaku does stop Ichigo to tell him about Kenpachi Zaraki, right? So this is something that, of course, we knew going into this, that Zaraki is looking for Ichigo, trying to find him. But we get confirmation so that Ichigo knows it, right? So he's got this anticipation. But I think the other big thing that this does is that it's meant to kind of build us for this inevitable fight that's going to happen. Essentially, if it wasn't made promise to us already enough before, this is yet more, Kubo really kind of laying down hype for like this fight to come, right? Like, oh well, Ikaku, that was a cool fight, right? You enjoyed that. Well, Ikaku's captain's even stronger, and he's definitely going to come after Ichigo. So, like, what's Ichigo going to do? If Ichigo can barely survive beating Ikaku, like, how will he even deal with this guy? And we get a very sinister and wonderful kind of shot, again, playing with those heavy shadows of Zaraki Kenpachi. And really, I love using, like, the full white for the Squad 11 symbol on his back. This is just a fantastic panel, and honestly, I'm surprised that it doesn't get thrown around a lot more often, because this is a really good one. But again, you can even see here where the Kenpachi's hair is longer than it was in that first initial depiction, like where like no spikes were like longer than this little one on the left. So again, hair becomes longer and more voluminous as the series kind of progresses, and not in a way that really is anything but stylistic. At least for this hairstyle, right? Anyway, we get confirmation of, now his hair's off the panel. Just too much. That is, of course, Zaraki, and we jump to him running into more dead ends. I do love that it gets brought up that, like, this kind of pans out, and Orihime and Uryu have just managed to avoid him, and it's because, he despite being strong, has very poor sense of Reiatsu, which is kind of sad. He's supposed to be a captain, but maybe he's a captain because of his sheer strength, you know? Maybe he doesn't need good Reiatsu sense. Yeah, you know, there's this bit of speculation that maybe he just has low detection ability. Of course, Orihime almost gets blindsided by this fella that shows up. We do get a decent look at him. Again, these kind of hard shadows, I think, really do a lot to cast him in this light. I also, this shot where Orihime is pointing and she hasn't noticed, speaking of recognizing or sensing spiritual energy, she hasn't noticed this Shinigami that's up here that is here to kill her. Seems to have sort of ceremonial, almost like Buddhist sort of rosaries as well. Fairly kind of firmly pushes it into this, again, this sort of Japanese aesthetic that they're going for. But yeah, we finally get this shot of this fella. Not all that good looking, but he does have this ball sword, so you know, big balls on his sword. But otherwise, gives us down this kind of threat. Yeah, and of course, Uryu is here in a very defiant sort of look, returned as he's rescued Orihime. This is probably the most detailed that we've seen these two characters drawn in a little while. So lots of shading, lots of going to focus on these expressions. Orihime is still very surprised by the suddenness of this interloper. And then, of course, we get more kind of fun times with Yachiru and Zaraki as she continues to mislead him. So it's not just that Zaraki has poor spiritual sense, it's that Yachiru also does, but she's very confident and just, oh yeah, go that way, even if it's the wrong way, right? So she continues to lead him astray, and he continues to kind of roam without direction, and maybe that's going to help keep our characters from getting all slaughtered by him one by one, right? But yeah, that's the chapter. It's, you know, got a little bit going on. We get a little bit of a fight here. We get the wrap up for Hikaku and Ichigo, and we get some, you know, some more interest, some more suspense built for Zaraki coming for Ichigo. But we're kind of left in a joke area of like, but he can't quite find the way. And then meanwhile, new danger rears its head. So it's a lot of playing with tension and relieving it, and then creating this longer, lingering tension for the chapters to come. All in all, I think it's a solid start to this volume because, again, you think about volume starts, you think about, really, for me, Bleach is something that I interpret as having been written for the volume format. As reading it weekly, it really felt that was the case. And I'm glad that I'm reading in the volumetric format now because it reads so well, being able to read like just back-to-back chapters, like if I'm really excited about it, or getting to see it all, you know, in sequence, not having to wait a week for every new one. And it feels like a lot of the plotting is made for that, rather than for the kind of weekly schedules. But I think this very smartly is the volume opener, as it does focus on a lot of different things, right? The previous volume closed on, you know, the end of this battle with Hikaku, and so this opens on, well, we've got this battle going on, that battle just ended, Kenpachi's headed over here, meanwhile, you know, they even have this, like, Ichigo even has that conversation with Hikaku where he talks about, like, okay, what was your forces? And it's like, oh, 5 of us and a cat. So, like, we get a lot of scene setting in this chapter, which you normally probably wouldn't get for any mangaka who wasn't really kind of cognizant of where this chapter would fall as the start of a volume. So I like that sort of stuff. It serves a mindfulness towards the collected format, the way that pretty much every human being is going to ever experience Bleach for the rest of time. So I do appreciate that stuff. All in all, you know, I think the highlight of this chapter for me really is Ichigo saving Ikaku's life, using this Diptych to save Ikaku, which is kind of cool because Ikaku was just planning on using that to kind of stymie smaller wounds, right, so that he could continue fighting to the death. But Ichigo used it in a way that he hadn't expected, as like a larger sort of preventative and cure, even though he used up the rest of it. I have no idea. Does it just recover over time? Like, I don't know. Does he have to like put more in there? because it's supposed to be a part of his soul. Ah, curious. Regardless, all good stuff. I really do like that interaction, and I like how Ikaku sort of comes around on Ichigo, and helps him out too, as paying that kind of favor forward. That maybe Ikaku goes on and on about how unlucky he is, but he was lucky to run into someone like Ichigo who would spare his life, right? Otherwise, that's about all I had to say for the chapter as far as art, narrative, and personal response. It's a solid chapter. I'm excited to get to the stuff that is yet to come in this volume. But that is it for that. If there's something that I left out, please leave a comment and let me know. Otherwise, let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about how this volume connects to the rest of the series, or how this chapter connects to the rest of the series, right? So, Renji on the front, because inevitably I believe that this is going to be the volume in which Renji has to fight Ichigo, right? Pretty sure. Yeah, Star and Stray Dog ends up being the final chapter in this, but we get Blood Red Conflict, we get Crush, we get all of that. So we will be getting there pretty soon. I'm trying to remember what happens in all these. Der Freuschut skiing. Okay, chill out, Kubo. Talking about the character poem, I do think it is in relation to Rukia, but there's also this idea of reaching out and not being able to reach to a thing that clearly evokes this relationship that he has towards Byakuya, right? That it's like a dog barking at the reflection of the moon, right? That no matter how much he bares his fangs, he can't truly reach it, right? But bare his fangs, Renji should do anyway, because he should live and die by what he truly believes in, and that's the sort of thing is that I think Bleach as a series really reflects in, okay, how far are you going to push what you really will stand up for? Like, is it life or death? Will you kill for a cause or for your own personal beliefs? Like, and that's reflected not just in our protagonist, but in our antagonist too, and all of our characters, right? We're finding out what people are willing to die for, and also how death affects all these people, right? These connections that they have to others. And so Renji's in kind of an interesting place where, he doesn't want Ruki to die, but he does want to serve as a member of the Soul Society. He does have all this honor for his captain, but he also needs to turn a blade against his captain. He's done battle with Ichigo. Is he really willing to die to stop this man who wants to save the person he loves? There's so much stuff like that going on. I feel like this poem kind of starts to encapsulate a little bit of that, right? As far as like slitting this throat being his own, I don't really read Renji as a suicidal character. I tend to read that as, that line as reflecting, discussion of Rukia. Though, if it's meant to be, if it's not just talking about the execution of Rukia, if it's meant to be in reference to Renji, I'd read it as more metaphorical, right? That all of this could be, like Renji kind of his hopes for Ichigo, right? For Ichigo to be the one to incite things, to light the fire, and to do all this so that Renji's not going to end up having to be the one to basically die for everything. So maybe that's a little bit of what's being reflected in that character poem. Nevertheless, let's get into a few other connections. Of course, the first big one is, as we know, Fuchikujaku is not his actual Shikai. And I wonder if the whole deal with Fuchikujaku and all of this right here, the reason why we don't get a release command is because it's not his actual Shikai, right? He's given a lot less, the Shikai so far have been given a lot of really over-the-top dramatics whenever revealed. And this one is just like, literally, he whips it up and he goes, whip! And like, that's it. Like, it's not even a full page. Like, literally every other Shikai reveal so far in the manga has gotten a full page, right? There's gotten a very dramatic reveal. And so the fact that Yumachika's is so understated, I think is a nod towards the fact that it isn't actually a Shikai in the first place. I don't think Kubo was ever intending Fuji Kujaku, this form of it, to really be a Shikai. This is a false sort of preening of itself, presenting a false face, just like the peacock can kind of present a false self. But as we know, it's not his actual Shikai. So it's interesting that that's kind of reflected a little bit visually here. It's also pretty kind of useless. Like, what's the point of transforming it? You know, there's no significance to that transformation other than like, hey, look, it's a sickle sword now. I guess. I don't think it really does. It cut stronger? Does it cut better? None of that makes sense. It doesn't seem like it's a more effective form in the way that Zabimaru or Hozukimaru are more effective forms. So it's curious to say the least. Nevertheless, total Ganju moment. I was thinking of like some other nonsense with that chapter cover. I don't know. Anyway, Ichigo, of course, saving somebody, saving the life of one of his antagonists, or one of his, the people that he goes up against. I do believe that this sort of happens again with Grimmjow, right? So he doesn't have to ask Grimmjow questions. It's just that I think Ichigo tends to like bond with the people that he fights, which is a pretty common shonen trope. But we really see it here for the first time, where he's actually defeated somebody who was trying to take his life like very seriously. With Uryu, it's just sort of them having a competition, and with all the Hollows, he doesn't really befriend them after like this beforehand. So this is really the first time that we've really seen Ichigo do this sort of thing. But it won't be the last, right? We do get confirmation, of course, again, of people's weapons turning back to Shikai, or from Shikai back to their, Asuichi, or the Zanpakuto self. Not Asuichi, they're Zanpakuto now, right? So there's a little bit of, like, the idea that even though Hozukimaru got messed up in Shikai form, it can still go back and form its regular self as soon as he becomes unconscious. So a little bit of that the rules of that there. I do like that he used Hozukimaru to patch up Ikkaku, especially because Hozukimaru is this kind of manifestation from his soul, right? It is a part of him, and so he gets to use a part of him to patch his own self up, which I think is cute. This idea of also patching somebody up whenever they're unconscious, it's kind of an interesting inversion, because we did get that from Orihime and Uryu, right? Where Uryu patched up Orihime while she was unconscious and she didn't bleed out. And here it is happening with Ikkaku and Ichigo again. And this would continue to happen again. I think we talked about this before, right? Whenever that came up. But this will happen again after the Kenpachi fight. So, something that, is kind of recurring. Interesting that he mentions, he refers to Ruki as that thing. I don't really know what's going on there. Trying to think if there's anything else that I really want to speak towards that I haven't already in a previous chapter. I mean, we know how like Kenpachi is. We know how his relationship with the Ichiru is, getting led to all these dead ends. That kind of being reflective of his soul, all of that. We've talked about that before. We get this guy who's an utter loser character again. Someone that's just here to job, essentially, but nevertheless does show up. We do get a reveal of a Shikai from this guy. And I'll talk about that more, in the chapters to come. But I think it's wild that this dude, whose name I can't even remember, I think he's like Jidambo's cousin. I think he's got a Danbo sort of name as well, like or a G sort of name. He's got a name similar to Jidambo's, is what I'm saying, because he's related to the giants in some way. But the fact that he gets a Shikai release, but we never get to see or get an explanation from like characters like Asane or Tetsuzaimon, who we know end up becoming captains, right? It's kind of bothers me. This is also one of the few guys that gets totally fucking destroyed by Uryu, is in like he gets his what is it, like his soul steel or whatever it is. He gets his whole shit right. Like Uryu is about to end this man's literal whole career. Like it's kind of wild to think about. And that never happens again. It's made such a big deal out of, whenever Byakuya, right? Byakuya. Byakuya? Am I getting it right? Someone called me out once, and now I forever second guess myself. Byakuya, Byakuya, Gojiki. Nevertheless, it becomes a big thing whenever Captain Kuchiki does that to Ichigo, right? And then he has to go through all this training to recover. And then it comes up again here with Uryu and this fella. And then it comes up again with Ryukin retraining Uryu. And I think it technically comes up. If it isn't mentioned explicitly, it's the way that I always interpreted the still silver arrow piercing Yuhaba. So, or Yahweh, but basically the way the series ends. So I don't know. It feels like something that should have come up more times, but it's kind of significant every time that it does, except for this asshole. Uh, but weird that Ishida's like, I have this technique where if I hit you exactly right, I'll end your entire capability to fight, and it doesn't come up nearly as much. But I mean, it also seems kind of like you can hit them in the specific pressure point. Like anytime that a character gets like I've got the perfect death blow move, you hardly get to see them pull it off. You might get one or two fantastic uses of it, but it hardly comes off. And I am talking about you, Soifan. I am talking about you. But there's the whole idea of having anything that's like meant to like really end a fight immediately. It's rare that comes up a lot in actual, shonen battle manga. Now, One Punch Man, I'm glad that it's pretty consistent there, but that's the whole conceit of the series. Nevertheless, here have some what surely throws some Uryu or Hime shipping, people in a tizzy. He's got his hand on her shoulder and everything. I'm sure that there's people that just they use this to support their theories. It's not like they're like comrades or anything like that, or that Uryu hasn't really expressed any sort of interest in women at all, much less Orihime. And nevertheless, maybe you can interpret it as him being a little awkward around here. Not the point. The point is we've got this guy to fight. This guy's got a design that I don't know. It bothers me in a few ways. It doesn't bother me in the ways that like signs like Pepe's or Nananas do, but it bothers me in the way that like I'm like, why did you just make this guy to make me feel a little uncomfortable? I don't know. He does make me feel a little uncomfortable. Of course, Aramake is just more of that. And yeah, that's all I have to say really about this chapter. There's not a lot to really expand upon. If there is something that you want to talk about spoiler-wise, just make sure to let me know in the comments. Make sure to tag it as a spoiler. But otherwise, please do like the video, as you did make it to the end here, and I am congratulating you, because I like you, because you listen to this whole damn thing. Well done. I hope that this made you think about the chapter in a couple different ways that maybe you didn't before. I hope that gave you a few insights that you might not have had. If it didn't, well, shame on me. You don't have to leave me a like. Fine. But if you do want to support me, as always, subscribing really does help. Sharing this with anybody that you know that's into Bleach, all that sort of thing. If you want to support in a different way, you can always support me on Patreon. The link should be in the description for the episode, as well as on the channel. But you can support me for as little or as much as you like, and it really does help. Currently on screen are the names of everyone who does support me over there on the Patreon as of the making of this episode, and I do want to take this time to thank you. It really does mean a lot to me. Otherwise, that's all for this one, folks. So, as a reminder, as always, I am Carker Gold, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.